All right, everybody. A new patch has been added to Lost Ark. So we're in the phase of Lost Ark's up and up. Okay, they added a lot of stuff to North America. I wanted to take the time today to just give my early impressions and short review of the Aeromancer. And as always, because I'm really lazy, I'm making this video very efficient. So, in traditional Lost Ark flavor, we're going to be doing dailies as we're talking about this class. Overall, I would say that Aeromancer has been a pretty interesting class to try out. If you guys are interested in making the Aeromancer, or you're wondering what you want to do with your Hyper Express that was just released with this patch, um, if you were thinking about making an Aeromancer, here are some of my early observations of the class as somebody who has committed their Hyper Express to the Aeromancer. The first big thing that I noticed playing Aeromancer was that for me personally, actually Drizzle, which is the specialization version of the class, wasn't as fun as the Swiftness version. And I think there's a few reasons for that. So, for those of you who aren't immediately familiar, and if you want to learn more about the class itself, a good place to go is the community guides. I think they're at Lost Ark Nexus is the website that holds all this stuff. I'll leave that in the description below. But if you want to just learn the basics about what the class does and what builds look like as a general overview, definitely go look at those community guides. But as a brief overview of the two class engravings, there's Drizzle, which is a specialization version, which was purported to be like the higher damage burst, like kind of like, what you would expect a traditional specialization class to be like. Damage windows, burst, that kind of thing. And then Wind Fury was the swiftness uptime version of the class. Now, I don't think that's actually completely accurate with how the Aeromancer actually plays in the current kind of like version of the game. I would say that both the classes are pretty heavily uptime, and there doesn't really feel like a burst like variation of Aeromancer, at least not in the way that you might expect it from especially classes like Igniter, Sork, or Punisher Slayer, or even like Surge Deathblade, or even like Striker, right? Like I don't think the class feels any degree similar to those classes. When I played Drizzle, which was a specialization version, I actually didn't really like it because for me, when I choose to play a specialization class, I really want there to be some kind of payoff in the numbers that I'm seeing or the gameplay that I'm experiencing, right? So for example, like if you were to play Igniter, there's like a very specific window where you're looking for huge numbers, big reward, right? And there's a distinct difference in playstyle from when you're building meter to when you're spending and doing damage moves, right? There's like a significant difference. The same thing can be said about Punisher Slayer, right? And the same thing can be said about Deathblade, right? You're building up your stacks, and then your unique gameplay is looking for the big number, the big hit on your Surge Slam, and you're really trying to be accurate with it, right? There's like a distinct flavor to that specialization burst damage playstyle that you're really looking for. Now, for Aeromancer, there were two things that really made me feel like Drizzle was not the spec for me. The first one is that it's really, really, really easy to build your meter for your bar. So how it works is you want to fill up your identity gauge, and then once that fills up, you pop your identity gauge, which puts you in a specific stance, and then that stance enhances the damage of the weather skills that you take. And so, okay, that sounds completely normal and sounds fine. Sounds basically like Igniter, right? You build your identity gauge, you pop your identity gauge, and it makes you do a lot of damage, right? In concept, it's very similar, but in execution, I feel like it's very different. So, the biggest difference, number one, is that it's really, really easy to build up your beater. You really only need like 3 skills, maybe not even that, depending on your stats, but I didn't really need any particular wealth runes, right? It's pretty easy to get high specialization, especially with the engraving support that we have right now. Um, and so it didn't really feel like there was a phase where I was not doing damage and just focused on building meter. That didn't really exist because that phase lasts about 3 abilities long that are all pretty quick casts, right? They're pretty short casts. It's not like Surge Deathblade, where you're building stacks for a extended period of time. It's not like Igniter Sork, where you're building meter for an extended period of time. And especially now, to my understanding, a lot of Punisher Slayers are now running the 1.5 cycle meter building build. So it's not even like remotely similar. Like maybe you could say it was similar to the 1 cycle Punisher Slayer builds that were just building their meter with 1 rotation of their meter generating abilities. But that's not the case for Aeromancer. It's even shorter than that, right? It almost feels like when you play Drizzle, you're basically always in your identity gauge. It's basically always on. You don't really think about it that much. When it comes off, you throw out your skills, it builds it back up, then you turn it back on, and then you start jamming your weather skills for damage. And not only are you jamming your weather skills for damage, you're also jamming your meter building skills because you're in the identity gauge state for so long that you may as well just be cycling all your skills for more damage. So there isn't even really a delineation for like, oh, I'm in my burst phase right now, or I'm in my meter generation phase, because it's all kind of like so short-lived that you're always kind of just in your burst phase. Which, when you put it that way, to me, it actually felt like the specialization class was kind of like the face roll, like just jam your buttons as fast as you can type class. Okay? So like, Drizzle, all that to say, Drizzle wasn't actually that fun for me because I didn't feel like I got the gameplay loop of we're building up our meter and we're going to do some big burst damage after we build up our identity gauge. It just felt like a very standard uptime type class. So I ended up trying Wind Fury, and Wind Fury is a class that is a specialization that I feel like I'm having a lot more fun with. So Wind Fury is the swiftness-based option for Aeromancers, and for all intents and purposes, it is also a traditional uptime class, right? The biggest thing is that you have your ability that preps your damage skills, and then you use your damage skills, right? So we're using Downward Strike. That gives us this current occurrence. If you see the top tripod there, it gives us a shield. And the reason why you want that is because on your damage skills, there's going to be a tripod. I don't know if I can find it here. You see the reversal on Rage. It's a tripod that says, oh, if you have a shield from current occurrence, then the ability, so Rage will do more damage if I had the shield active when I used it. Fine, right? So use your shield, use your damage skill. Use your shield, use your damage skill. This is not rocket science, right? It's a fairly simplistic rotation. But I feel like it's much more fun because it actually is a swiftness class, right? I'm looking for that kind of experience as opposed to for Drizzle, right? When I'm playing a specialization class that I want burst damage from, I want something to be hard hitting, right? So I really prefer Wind Fury because you get the benefits of stacking swiftness. You have fast movement speed. You have fast attack speed, your spacebar cooldown is really, really short. You know, all these are really big benefits to playing Wind Fury. And you have the skill set and the statistics to make it so that you can play high uptime with the appropriate tools. You can kind of like take a lot of risks in boss fights. You can play very aggressively because of how your statistics are set up and the speed and the kit that you have. And so I really think this is where Aeromancer excels and what you want to optimize for. If you're playing Aeromancer, it's a class where you want to find as many openings in the boss movesets as you can and try to play super aggressively. Your moveset is conducive to this because there's not a lot of opportunity for you to do things like miss a big surge, right? And the punishment for missing that is not nearly as big as if you miss a Doomsday, if you miss your Brutal Impact or whatever it is, right? Depending on what class you're playing. For Aeromancer, it's all about uptime, and I think Wind Fury enables you to play that type of gameplay the best possible in the best possible way. So I really enjoy Wind Fury. If you're looking for a class that is about fast speed, uptime, aggressive play, I would really recommend Wind Fury. I personally wouldn't recommend Drizzle, but if you guys have been playing Drizzle and have been enjoying it, let me know. Some other things to mention here that I think could be particularly enticing is that because we get 5x3 engravings from the engraving support due to the Hyper Express, or the Super Makoko Express, I guess is what they're calling it, it's really easy to try both specs. You can kind of just like switch your specs just with a click of a button. And because you have this engraving support, you can just focus on, so they'll give you free accessories that are purported to be 100 quality, but you'll notice that like typically for a relic accessory for like a relic earring, 100 quality is actually 300 stat. And you'll notice that here it says for the earring here, it says only 282 swiftness at 100 quality. That's because these accessories that they give you for free are not actually like maxed out on stats. So if you care about min-maxing a little bit, you can totally just replace those accessories as you get them. So for example, I'm still using the neck, the free neck that you give from the engraving support, but then I've replaced my earring with a max quality swiftness earring here. So just make sure that if you care about optimizing your stats, just know that you can swap them out. Even if you pick up the free ones, you're not like locked into using the free accessories that they give you, okay? And then you can try both of them and see which one you prefer. If you guys have been playing Aeromancer, let me know how your experience is. And then maybe I'll talk a little bit more about Wind Fury doing a Caligos. Which, incidentally, another change from this new patch of Lost Ark is we only have to do the Guardian raids once. So, kind of nice. You got all your rewards with just one run. Now, of course, it kind of, you know, I wish there was more boss content for me to play, just kind of casually. But in terms of getting through your dailies, it's very, very nice. Okay, I am on Wind Fury. So my big goal here is, of course, uptime. I'm going to try to pop Conviction Judgment as much as I can because Wind Fury has a lot of mana problems. Probably going to need to eat mana food a lot and gain a lot of levels before you can kind of like bounce that out, but it's something that you're going to need to pay attention to. So put my synergy on with my Q. There it is. Get my Conviction Judgment. And now it's just about rotating my shield and my damage. My shield, my damage. Put the synergy on again. And I can pop my identity. It gives my party a buff to their attack speed and movement speed. So kind of nice to try to keep good uptime on that. I think your party will really appreciate that. But other than that, we're just trying to uptime here. So he's probably going to leave it a bit, but you build your identity fast enough that you can kind of just pop it whenever you want. Who's one? Did somebody throw? Sure. The other thing that's really cool about Aeromancer is that when you're outside of your identity, your spacebar is just a normal spacebar. When you're in your identity, you go a little bit further, and you also have the choice to change your direction mid-spacebar, which is really useful for fine positioning and for doing more complicated maneuvers to try to improve your uptime. So I really like that. I think that's a really cool addition to the class. Gives you a little bit more flavor and kind of feeds into the playstyle that you really want to embrace, which is like being very aggressive and making quick decisions to avoid attacks from the boss while getting yourself in a spot where you can do damage. We're gonna wait here for the counter. Send our synergy. And we're continuing to just shield and damage, and shield and damage. And since we're a Hitmaster class, we don't actually have anything that procs back attack or anything like that. Get that, and then we hit our destruction here. Nice. Cool, we got that. And now this is really fun with Caligos because your cooldowns get reduced. So we're actually going to just be cycling our biggest damage hitters over and over again. Proc this. That, use my awakening here under the buff. Get my synergy up again. Now I'm just gonna cycle my R and my F as much as I can. Put our synergy on again. Nice. So the buff is out. Just keep uptiming as hard as we can. My F skill has a lot of range on it. I believe it's called Wind Gimlet. It has a good amount of range, as well as my R. You don't actually need to be right up close to the boss to be doing damage. The only thing is that your shield skills, the skills that proc your shield, which you want to use before your damage abilities, have a forward dash on them. So you'll oftentimes find yourself hugging the boss. even though you should remember that you don't have to, right? So I can attack from range there. This is me. Cooldowns are short enough that you can kind of just jump in and play aggressively. You don't really need to worry about wasting your cooldowns as much. That doesn't really happen as much. Okay. And stand in front here because we're a Hitmaster class, so you can avoid that attack. Oh, somebody needs to get the counter there. Didn't do it. Super armored it. It's also something that, technically, as an Aeromancer, I feel like you should be looking for counters a good amount, especially because you're not back attack locked, so you can stand in a good position to try to hit the counters from the front. Obviously, you're not going to be nearly as adept at doing this as like a Gunlancer or a Destroyer, maybe. But your cooldowns are short, you know, you have quick animation, you have good movement speed, so you should be able to hit the counters a lot. Okay, destruction, destruction. This should be a destruction on the last hit as well. There's good choices for Aeromancer for the utility abilities that you might want to be using in a raid. So destruction and stagger all have some pretty good options on Aeromancer for. And you have a little bit of flexibility for how you want to build your character. If you want to take slightly more weak point, or if you want to take slightly... Let's try to counter. Okay, somebody got it. Now we're just trying to do damage here, give our team a buff, put the synergy on, and we're just trying to cycle our big hitting skills. Nice. And that's the Aeromancer. I think the most fun that you're going to have with this class is feeling like you're really free to maneuver around the boss fight, to do a lot of damage, right? You can be really, really aggressive and be pressing a lot of buttons. And so if you're looking for that kind of experience, I would say the Aeromancer is a really good choice. You've got decent stagger, you can have decent weak point, you have flexibility to kind of fine-tune your build to either one if you want. And then you also have really good synergy. People really appreciate high uptime crit synergy, and you have a good buff for your teammates. On Wind Fury, you can increase their attack speed and movement speed, and then on Drizzle, you can reduce the damage that they take. So overall, I would say Aeromancer, so far, my early impressions is that it's pretty fun. So if you're thinking of trying it out, I definitely recommend it.